See you, bye. Bye. See you tomorrow. Sarah waved to everyone, adjusted her backpack, and walked along the path toward home. The other kids lived in the village, but Sarah lived in the woods because her dad was a recluse. Well, that's what the villagers called him. In truth, her dad had been a good, cheerful man while her mom was alive. But not anymore. He didn't deprive Sarah of anything. He always helped her with homework if she struggled. They would go to town, to the market, to shops, but always to a different town, not the one they used to live in. A year ago, her dad came home, sat his 10-year-old daughter down, and said, "Sarah, I want to talk to you like an adult. Things haven't been easy for us since your mom passed away. I thought time would heal, and I'd learn to live without her. But I couldn't. Everything here reminds me of her. Everything. The house, the yard with her flowers, the streets where we used to walk. Sarah, I found a wonderful place. It's a little isolated from people, but there are schools nearby, and there are kids. Dad, do you want us to move?" "Yes. And not just move, but move from here to a village." "But we've never lived in a village. I read that there's no hot water and the toilet is outside." "That's true, but only for those who don't want to put in any effort. We're not like that, are we? Besides, we'll sell everything here and be able to afford to build a brand new house." Sarah pondered. On the one hand, she'd have to say goodbye to all her school friends. On the other, she hadn't really been close to anyone, because the other kids didn't like that she was an A student. Their school was elite, impossible for ordinary people to get into. The students there only studied just enough to get by. They knew no one would expel them or hold them back a year. Sarah, however, was different. She always advanced far beyond the curriculum on her own, which was why she always got straight A's. So, there wasn't much to worry about regarding friends. New ones would surely appear. The girl looked up. "Dad, will we be able to get a pet there, like a kitten or a puppy?" Nicholas hugged his daughter. "Both a kitten and a puppy. You can't imagine how wonderful it is there. We'll go fishing, swim, ski, and in winter, we'll decorate a real, living Christmas tree that grows right in the yard. And the birds sing there all the time." Sarah looked at her father, captivated. "Let's go. When?" "Well, you have a month left until the end of the school year, so we can go after that." And so, for a whole year, they had lived in the woods. From the village side, the forest was only about 5 meters deep, but the trees practically concealed the house, giving the full impression that they were cut off from the entire world. However, this was just the villagers' perception. Few knew that in a single year, the house they had bought had changed beyond recognition. It had expanded. Instead of a low roof, there was now a second floor, and the roof itself had become a beautiful red color. Inside the house, there was a warm toilet. Her dad had called someone from the city to drill a well, so they even had a bathroom. And there was real internet, too. In fact, they had everything one could ever dream of. The large surrounding area was enclosed by a high fence, so if anyone walked by, they wouldn't see much. Just a couple of months ago, her dad told her he had been offered a job as a forest ranger. Sarah, who by then had read a ton of information about trees and forests, clapped her hands. "Dad, that's an awesome profession, way cooler than a businessman." Nicholas smiled. Here, in the quiet of the forest, his spirit was slowly beginning to thaw. "Sarah, dear." The girl stopped. Grandma Kate was catching up to her. She lived on the other side of the village and was a little out of breath from running after the girl. "Here, give this to your dad, and thank him very much." The old woman placed a heavy package into her hand. "It's fresh meat. Grandpa took down a wild boar. If it weren't for your dad, there would have been no one to do it." Grandma Kate dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. "Maybe you should keep some yourselves?" Grandma Kate's eyes widened. "Don't you know your dad? We don't need anything. We have everything. I'm not offering because we don't have enough, but because you can't buy something like this in a store." Sarah smiled. Grandma Kate was very kind. All the kids loved her, and Grandpa, her husband too. They used to treat them to apples and berries. A month ago, Grandpa John had a heart attack, and the paramedic was gone. She had gone somewhere. They thought he would die. Grandma Kate was already wailing mournfully, but then Nicholas arrived in his car. He and the men carefully placed Grandpa in the back seat and rushed him to the city. The doctors said, "Another hour, and that would have been it. We wouldn't have saved him." But now Grandpa was running around like a young man, and Grandma Kate was overjoyed. He even immediately quit smoking his foul-smelling pipe. Sarah sighed. This was going to be heavy. her backpack, and now this package too. Oh well, it wasn't much further. She was almost home. What was there to see? Something off to the side caught her attention. She looked that way, then spotted her father by the gate, ran up, and handed him her backpack and the package. "Hi, Dad. Wait a minute." And she dashed off towards whatever she had seen. Nicholas watched her with a bewildered look, then whistled. A large dog immediately trotted over to him. "Rex, guard her." Nicholas nodded towards Sarah, and in 2 leaps, the dog caught up with the girl. Sarah patted his big head and continued on her way. Nicholas just shook his head. His daughter was always like this. If something interesting appeared, all her attention went there. Nicholas hadn't even reached the porch when he heard his daughter's frantic scream and Rex's barks. The backpack and package flew to the ground. In a second, he had grabbed his rifle and rushed out the gate. He immediately saw his daughter's bright jacket. She was standing, looking at something. The dog was beside her, barking. A minute later, Nicholas was beside them. Oh my goodness! A woman was tied to a thick tree. Her eyes were closed, her head hanging limply. Sarah stared at her with wide eyes. Dad, she's dead." Nicholas pressed his hand to her neck. There was a pulse. He quickly cut the ropes, prevented her body from falling, held her, and gently laid her on the ground. The stranger moaned. "Sarah, run home. Bring water." The girl ran. Luckily, the fence was right there, just a stone's throw away. Rex was with her. The dog obediently followed the girl. Nicholas looked around. What in the world was happening on his property? Sarah brought water. He sprinkled a little on the woman's face, and then, when she opened her eyes, he gave her a drink from the bottle. The stranger took several greedy gulps, and, looking with wild eyes, whispered, "Hide me. Hide me. He'll come back to see if I'm dead or not." Who? But the woman lost consciousness again. Nicholas easily lifted her into his arms. "Everyone home, quickly." He laid the woman on the couch, took off her jacket, and saw bruises. Yes, it seemed she had been roughly pressed for something, but her clothes were expensive, her jewelry gold, and everything was still in place. That meant it wasn't strangers, it was someone from her own circle, and they didn't want trinkets. At first, Nicholas thought about rushing to get the paramedic. Then he remembered how the woman had pleaded to be hidden. "All right, let's wait and see, then we'll decide." He bandaged and treated her scrapes, examining her thoroughly, finding no particularly serious injuries, and decided to wait. By nightfall, when his daughter was already asleep, the guest slowly opened her eyes. "Where am I?" She saw Nicholas and flinched. "Don't be afraid. I'm the local forest ranger, and no one knows you're here yet." "What happened?" "My husband. He wants me to sign everything over to him." "Your husband? Are you serious?" "Unfortunately, yes. We've only been married for 3 years. I found out he was cheating on me. I wanted to file for divorce, but he found out." Nicholas even scratched his head. How could this be? A husband, supposedly the closest and most beloved person. It simply didn't make sense in his mind. "Perhaps you'd like to eat?" The woman shook her head and winced. "To drink, if possible." The next day, Olivia, as she was called, felt better. She was able to sit up and, even leaning on Nicholas, made it to the bathroom. She was terribly embarrassed by this, which amused Nicholas. She seemed to be over 30, and yet a simple walk to the bathroom had caused her such discomfort. When Sarah came home from school, Nicholas introduced them. His daughter carefully examined the woman and declared, "You're pretty, just a little dirty, Olivia." Nicholas gave his daughter a reproachful look, but Sarah quickly added, "I'm sorry, I didn't think. Would you like me to help you take a shower? I can bring you a chair." Olivia smiled. "That would be absolutely wonderful." With each passing minute, Nicholas realized more and more how much Sarah lacked female companionship. She and Liv chatted as if they were the best of friends. Sarah showed off her cool makeup kits. "Of course, I don't wear makeup yet, but sometimes, when I'm home, anyway, when I grow up, I want to be a very famous makeup artist." "That's a great idea. First, your passion should bring you joy and pleasure, and second, good makeup artists are always in high demand." They went into the bathroom, paying no attention to Nicholas. He chuckled and began setting the table. About 15 minutes later, Sarah darted out of the bathroom, flew past him, then came back, carrying his large terry cloth bathrobe. He had brought it here, but never taken it out. Nicholas silently watched his daughter, then sighed again. For some reason, it suddenly occurred to him that, most likely, Olivia would have nothing on under the bathrobe. And he immediately got angry, shaking such thoughts from his head. Dinner was strange. They talked, even laughed about things. And Nicholas realized he felt so good, so calm, somehow simply right, like home. He couldn't fall asleep. He tossed and turned for a long time, then went outside. Behind him, a door creaked. Without turning, he knew it was Olivia. They looked at the sky for a long time, and then Liv said, "It's beautiful here." "Yes, it is. So, tell me, how did all this happen for you?" They sat on the porch for a very long time. Nicholas learned that her husband was younger than her, and only now did she realize he had married her for her money. Nicholas, in turn, told her his story about how a drunk driver had hit his wife at a crosswalk. And he knew for certain that the driver had been caught at first, but then some confusion arose. In the end, the case was hushed up. He had offered money, but apparently, someone had paid more. 4 days later, something Nicholas least expected happened. While Sarah was at school, Liv started cleaning, and somehow he ended up helping her. In short, they woke up in bed, and it was as if the ice around his heart had finally broken. Liv was embarrassed, but Nick knew he wouldn't let her go. And she was willing to drop everything and stay here. Sarah saw what was happening between the adults and simply bounced with joy. She loved her mom very much, but Dad deserved to live, and Liv was so kind, so interesting. One day, Nicholas said, "Liv, that's it. I can't do this anymore. We're going to the city, and you're filing for divorce. We'll wait, and then you'll marry me." Olivia sighed. "I'm sorry, but that's impossible." "Impossible? Why?" "I thought, Liv, I can't imagine living without you, and I don't understand how I lived before. I'll miss Sarah terribly, but you yourself won't want me around." "But why not?" Nicholas stood up abruptly. He didn't understand anything. "Nick, yesterday I was dusting in your room, and I came across a photo of your wife." And Nick tensed up completely. "It was my husband who hit your wife. I was the one who paid to make the case disappear. It was at the very beginning of our relationship. Of course, I wouldn't do it now." Nicholas stared at her for a minute, then silently walked out of the house. He sat on a tree stump, looking straight ahead, seeing out of the corner of his eye as Olivia left the house, then walked out the gate and disappeared. He continued to sit there. Olivia walked towards the bus stop, to the road. She needed to go back to the city. There was nothing left for her here. She heard a car, raised her hand. The car stopped. Olivia opened the door and recoiled. "Well, wife, get in." Olivia turned and started to run. Max, her husband, jumped out and ran after her. One more second, and he would have caught her. Then a shot rang out. Then Max ran forward. Standing between them, rifle in hand, was Nicholas. "Now you're going to tell me on camera how you hit my wife, then how you beat your own wife and demanded she sign everything over to you." "No way." Another shot rang out. A clump of grass jumped up between Max's boots. He whined again. "The next one will be a glancing shot." "Are you crazy?" Another shot. A trickle of blood ran down Max's sleeve. "All right, I'll do it." And that was it. Olivia and Nicholas got married 6 months later. They had to wait a bit for the court cases to resolve themselves.